Spartan Sports Gumbo. So today we are going to be diving into our teams of the week from last week, our players of the week. We'll talk a little bit of hot seat this week. Then we're going to talk about the biggest non-SEC games and the biggest SEC games of the week. So let's roll into our team of the week. Kevin, want to get us started?
You bet. So my team of the week is all these years we've wondered, when is the U going to be back? A couple of times Mark Rick was there, had a 10-win season. Last year, Cristobal got off to a good start. And there's been different times. I'm here to say that the U is back for 3 quarters the other night in that game. Miami looked like a team that you would say is a national championship favorite. They ended up winning the game, and never that was never in question. Florida State made them look a little human in the fourth quarter, I guess you would say. But for 3 quarters, Florida State, who is a good football team, was to me where that Miami dominated that game defensively and took their shots offensively. Um, but I would have to say Miami at this point is the best defense in college football. And when you look, they beat good competition. They beat Notre Dame, who's a good football team. They beat Florida State this weekend, which is a good football team. They beat Florida, who beat Texas. So in 5 weeks, 6 weeks of the season, and they also destroyed South Florida, a team that's beat. We'll talk about later. That's beat good teams. So they're very proven against quality competition. So I got to give it up to the Hurricanes. Mario Cristobal, you were my team of the week. So, DMAC, who do you have?
Yeah, I've got the Duke Blue Devils from last week. They played a late night West Coast game over in California against the Cal Golden Bears. So through 18 minutes of that game, they were down 21-7, and Cal had the ball for close to 14 minutes of that first 18 minutes of the game, and then Duke does what it does. They get the ball rolling. They end up winning that game 45 to 21. So they scored 38 unanswered points. Phenomenal showing for them. Put them at 3-0 in the ACC. So Duke's my team of the week this week. Mensa looked really good for them. Their defense caused some turnovers. Who do you have this week, Sweets?
My team of the week is the UCLA Bruins, the 1-4 UCLA Bruins, who traveled across country to meet seventh-ranked Penn State in Happy Valley, and they laid the wood to Penn State and James Franklin in Happy Valley. They won 42-37, but the game got close at the end. But UCLA handled them from start to finish. Nico had an unbelievable game. UCLA's defense stepped up and got stops when they needed to. Penn State was missing stud linebacker Tony Rojas, and I think that was a big miss for them in being able to contain I am Lieva. But hats off to UCLA getting their first win of the season after letting Deshaun Foster go, and they are my team of the week. We'll move into player of the week, and I'll jump right in and say the player of the week for me is Nico Iamaleava. Nico had a great game. He accounted for 5 touchdowns on the day. I want to say he had 166 passing yards to go with about 150 or so rushing yards. And again, he accounted for 5 touchdowns. He was awesome. No turnovers. This is what Tennessee expected when they signed him for all that money was the performance that he had yesterday. So it's taken 5 games, but he finally showed up and looked like he was a kid that knew what he was doing. So hats off to UCLA and Nico for my team and player of the week. Who do you have, Kevin?
Yeah, so for my player of the week, I'm going to go with Ty Simpson from Alabama. He did throw his first interception of the game or the season early in the first half of that game against Vanderbilt, but he completed over 70% of his passes, controlled that game, kept the Alabama offense getting first downs. Very different game this year versus Vanderbilt versus last year. Alabama controlled the time of possession this year, 18 minutes in the first half, and I believe about 34 minutes total game. So they basically got first down, scored points, forced Vanderbilt to score when they had the ball, and that to me that pressure really changed the game. So I got to go with Ty Simpson for the Player of the Week. D-Mac, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go over to Aggie Land and take KC Concepcion, wide receiver from Texas A&M. Had two big touchdown catches in their game against Mississippi State. Four catches for 61 yards, 118 all-purpose yards, and somehow he is not even co-player of the week in the SEC. Still trying to make sense of that in my mind, but he's player of the week where it matters on the Southern Sports Gumbo show. So
That's right.
There
yeah,
you go. There
the
you go.
way that he moves and runs routes is incredible. Huge addition for that Southern Miss or Texas A&M football team this year. So really excited to see what he can do the rest of the season. He's already got 6 total touchdowns on this season. So that'll bring us into our non-SEC games, and we'll get things started with a little Friday night matchup. USF traveling to the Mean Green North Texas Fighting Machines. Kevin, what do you think of that game?
So I think so. This is a Friday night game. Starts at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. It to me, it's the game of the week as far as the early games before you get into your Saturday games. Both teams fighting to be in contention for that non-power four candidate into the playoffs. North Texas is coached by Eric Morris. South Florida by Alex Golish. Both of these guys are really good offensive coaches. A little bit different in their approach. Morris is more quarterback oriented from a passing standpoint. Golish is more of a dual threat, run the ball. Tennessee, that's where he came from. So he's from that Bryles offense. But I think this is going to be a really good game. Both offenses can score. South Florida has a very good defense. If you break it down, um, Byron Brown, quarterback for USF, again, he's a dual threat guy. He executes the offense very well. Quarterback for North Texas, Drew Mastinska. He's been solid this year. He's played very well. They have two running backs that lead their running game, Mackenzie McGill and a freshman, Caleb Hawkins, was the freshman of the week in the conference 2 weeks ago. So they really balance the running game for the quarterback, and again, he does a good job passing the ball. When you get into the defensive side of the ball, you've got both teams have really good linebackers that'll probably be all conference, Trey Fields and Mac Harris. I really feel like that this game will come down to the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, potentially to even what team has the ball last. I want to favor South Florida because I feel like they're very good, but at home, North Texas is going to be hard to beat in this game. If I got to go with a pick, and I do, it's what we do. I'm going to pick South Florida to win this game 38-35. But this game is man, it's a shame we got to pick it. The point spread on it's South Florida minus 1.5, so basically it's a pick it game with the over under at 66.5. So everybody that gets a chance should watch this game. It's going to be an exciting game in my opinion. Sweets, what's your thoughts on North Texas, South Florida?
I'm with you. I'm high on South Florida, and North Texas is. They've been playing some great ball. It's going to be tough for South Florida to go on the road and get that win, but I think they do it. I think they go in and win by a field goal, maybe as much as 6-7 points, and show that they're not a fluke. What are your thoughts on it, DMAC?
Yeah, so got to give some credit to South Florida. They beat Boise week 1. They beat Florida. They handled Charlotte last week. You know, I was speaking to a North Texas dad today. His daughter tailgates every game, but they leave the stadium and go to the bar, go home, whatever, before the game starts. They just tailgate. Well, this week they're going to the game. Dad, mom, all going to the game. I think even though South Florida's played in some tough environments, I think the Mean Green's going to be rocking in Denton this week. I'm going to take the North Texas team to win this game. I'm going to go 41-35 in favor of North Texas this week.
The
So that,
Fighting Matt Bruins, huh? I love it.
yeah, so that brings
I
us
love it.
to the Ohio State Illinois game. Who do you like in this one, Sweets?
I like Ohio State here. The line is 14 and a half. They're going on the road to Champaign, and they're going to have an orange out, which is a sight to see. And they listen. Ohio State's look good. They're ranked number one in the country. They're the defending national champion. Pardon me. Julian Sayin is getting better by the week. He's really coming into his own, and he's certainly put himself in the Heisman talk with his recent play. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are doing great receiving the ball for them, and true freshman Bo Jackson, Bo knows, leads Ohio State with 360 yards on the ground. Illinois averages 37 points a game, led by quarterback Luke Altmyer, who's completing an insane 80+% of his passes on the season. I mean, that's Tecmo Bowl numbers there. They've looked really good offensively and defensively. Saved the game against Indiana. They need to get back on track, but playing against Ryan Day and Ohio State is not going to be the team or the week to do it against. I've got Ohio State going into Champaign and leaving with a 42-17 win. What do you think about that game, Kev?
Man, it's going to be a good game. It's Illinois got handled by Indiana, and since then they played better. And so to me, this is their chance to say to the college football world, we are legitimate. I think that's the question, and it's a big home game for them. It should be a heck of an environment. That being said, I like how Julian Sayin's playing. You mentioned that, and he's getting better every week. 2 years ago, I thought he was the best high school quarterback, and so being an SEC fan, it did not bother me that he left Alabama. But he's proven to be really good. So if I had to pick the game, I'm going to go Ohio State 35, Illinois 27. But look, maybe Altmyer can get things going, and that crowd can get into it and make it an interesting game. But it certainly will be a game that's worth watching. D-Mac, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I love Luke Altmyer, former SEC guy, playing really good in the Big Ten this year. But I think Matt Patricia and that Ohio State defense, led by Caden Curry, the defensive end with 5 sacks, it's going to be a little too much for the Fighting Illini this week. So I'm going to go 45-21. So give me the Buckeyes and give me the over in this one. So that brings us to our next game, Indiana at Oregon. Anybody want to take this one first?
Well, we can kind of all jump in on it.
Jump on it, D-Mac.
So Fernando Mendoza, to me, is the key for Indiana in this game. Oregon is good on both sides of the ball. They went on the road in Penn State and controlled the game. Penn State came back in the second half and got it into overtime, and Oregon pulled it out in the end. This game's at home for them. Indiana, again, averages about 300 yards rushing a game. So to me, that makes this game very interesting when you look at Oregon and how well coached they are defensively. And then you balance that rushing attack with Mendoza. It really makes Indiana an outstanding offense. Probably the best offense that Oregon will play all year. I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think Oregon wins it, but I think this could be like a 34-31 game that, again, is decided in the last 6-7 minutes of the fourth quarter. This is not last year's Indiana team. They're better on both sides of the line of scrimmage than they were last year. They have more explosive players. Mendoza's a better quarterback. So I think they will play well and take Oregon to the wire, but in the home field, I think Oregon wins at 34-31. What's your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, Oregon has looked really good. So has Indiana. But I love Dante Moore this year. He's playing really good football. And these West Coast teams in the Big Ten are really dominating when they're playing a home game against the East Coast. You know, I want to say I know last year they were 8-1. This year they're off to a pretty solid start too. So line 7.5. I think Indiana is a really good football team. But this week, I love Oregon, and the over's 55.5. I think both teams are going to score some points. I've got this one going 49-31, which puts you at what, 80 points, 90 points in this one. So love the Oregon Ducks here. What do you think, Sweets? Oh, no Sweets, just you. Oh, he's back.
He's back. We knew he'd be back.
Here we go.
Go ahead. Your
Uh,
thoughts on Oregon and Indiana.
what you said stands out the most to me at the end, DMAC. A team traveling from the Midwest or the East Coast to the West Coast. The numbers haven't been good so far this year, and they weren't that good last year with teams doing the same thing. So I like Oregon a lot in this game. I think that defensively they're probably a little more talented than what Indiana's faced so far this year. So give me Oregon in a 38-27 game. Uh, who does that take us to?
Yeah, that takes us to NC State traveling to South Bend to face off Notre Dame. So I'll jump into this one to get us started. You know, NC State's quarterback Bailey is playing really well, nearly 1,700 passing yards, 13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. The Wolfpack sitting at 4-2 right now. But the last couple of weeks after starting 0-2, Notre Dame's fired back to go 3-0. They beat Purdue, Arkansas, and Boise. CJ Carr's looking great. Jeremiah Love's getting back into form with nearly 450 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. The defense is starting to look like a Notre Dame defense, Marcus Freeman coach defense. So this is a 21.5 point line here. I don't love that line. That is a lot of points in South Bend. But I think Notre Dame wins this game pretty handedly. I'm gonna go I'm gonna go 35-17, which puts you right around there, whether you buy down the hook or not in this one. I think Notre Dame wins big though, but I'm not sure it's enough to cover 21.5. What do you think, Sweets?
Yeah, I'm with you. I just like Notre Dame. They're starting to round into form now defensively. They're looking better. Carr is starting to get more comfortable in the pocket. They've got a strong running game. I like Notre Dame to win the game. I think North Carolina State covers. I like 35-24. I think they cover, but the game's never in doubt in the second half. I think Notre Dame gets out to a 14-point lead or so at halftime, and then just kind of cruises in the second half to victory. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I like Notre Dame a lot in this game. You know, they lost that home game against Texas A&M, and people questioned their defense. To me, they really put a focus on their defense the last couple of weeks. Kept Arkansas to, who's a good offensive team, kept them to 13 points. They've been dominant, you know, in the last few weeks. So, and their offense is really good. And I love C.J. Carr. I think he's just a great leader as a redshirt freshman. So I think Notre Dame wins this game 45-13. I think they roll. So who does that bring us
That takes us
to?
to Kansas at Texas Tech. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that, DMAC?
Yeah, so I mean, Texas Tech may be outside of Miami the hottest team in the country this year. You know, they went in with the philosophy that they were going to spend money. You know, takes money to make money, and it's paying off for them so far this year. Mac Leftwich, their offensive coordinator, has that offense rolling. They've scored 60-plus points twice, 34-plus in the other 3 games. They are looking great. On the other side, you got Kansas, who's 4-2. Jalen Daniels is playing really good football. 16 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 1,500 yards. So they're no joke on the other side either. This game is currently sitting at 14.5 points, though. I think Texas Tech's just too good. Playing at home in Lubbock, I love the Red Raiders in this one. I'm going to go 45-21. Big win for Texas Tech. Going to move up in the AP poll again. So they're going to keep rolling, and I don't see any signs of them slowing down, at least this week anyway. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, I like Tech. I like Kansas offense, and I think they'll move the ball some. Tech, though, has a pretty solid defense. They're the one. Well, Tech and BYU both have good defenses in that Big 12 conference. Utah's a competitive defense. So I just think they'll slow Kansas down enough, and their offense is rolling. Tech, to me, is the best team in that conference right now. Look, we talked about it the other night. Kansas is a team that will upset somebody along the way. I just don't think it happens this time. So give me Tech 35-24 in this game. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I'm with you guys. Quarterback Baron Morton's passed for over 1,400 yards with 12 touchdowns on the season. Running back Cameron Dickey and Kobe Williams both have over 300 yards on the season. And they've got, every wide receiver's getting catches, yards, and touchdowns. So Texas Tech, I think, is just a little too much for Kansas. Give me Texas Tech 45, Kansas 24, and take the over as well. Who does that bring us to next?
Yeah, that brings us to Michigan at USC. I'll get things started on this one. This is another travel advantage for USC playing this one at home out in LA. You got Michigan traveling, over 2,000 miles, I would assume. Both of these teams are looking pretty good. Bryce Underwood had a good game last week. They're starting to play well on offense. Justice Haynes is a dog, the running back there. Nearly a little over 650 yards and 8 touchdowns through their first 5 or 6 games this year. But on the other side, you got another high-powered offense. Jaden Mavia looks just as good as anybody throwing the ball. Nearly 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. And they're running the ball really well, averaging about 6 yards a carry on the USC side. So really good matchup, 2 high-power offenses, 2 serviceable defenses. So right now, this is a 2.5-point game leaning towards the Trojans. And I love USC in this one with the home field advantage playing a big part. I think this is going to be a really good game for about 3 quarters, maybe even into the fourth a little bit. But I'm going to go with a 38-31 win for USC this week. What do you think, Sweets?
I'm with you. I like USC as well. From the Midwest. US yards a game, and they leave Jay. Got I think.
All right, Sweets. I think we're going to have you hop off and hop back on.
There are going to be some bump.
Let's switch over to Kevin here to give his thoughts on the game.
Yeah, so I like USC in this game, but it's a really good matchup. Again, the spread's close for a reason. To me, you've got, can USC's defense slow down Michigan's running game? Nobody's really slowed down Haynes all year. He's had over 100 yards in every game. To me, I think Haynes is going to end up in the Heisman conversation as the season goes along. And then you have Michigan's defense, who intercepted Wisconsin 4 times this past weekend against Maliva, the quarterback for USC, who's only thrown 1 interception on the year versus 11 touchdowns, and has about a 70% completion rating. So, to me, that's the thing. Can USC's passing game keep their offense rolling? And USC can run the ball. They're balanced this year. Let me say that. But I think playing at home with an experienced quarterback, USC will be able to overcome the secondary of Michigan and win a game that, again, for 3 quarters, I agree. I think that'll be pretty tight. But I think they end up winning the game by 10 points. I got to go with USC 34-24 over Michigan. I just don't know that Michigan can keep up offensively from a totality standpoint with USC, what USC can do at home. Sweets, any more thoughts on that game? I know you were in the middle of it. Still maybe having
I think that Michigan.
Okay, we lost Sweets again, so
he'll be back.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the let's go Arizona State, Utah.
All right, so this is going to be a good game in the Big 10, in the Big 12, against 2 teams that are competing to be at the top of that league. Arizona State took a loss on the road to Mississippi State, but since then they've been playing well. So to me, this is a game that matches up. Arizona State's very good offensively. They're averaging about 30 points a game. And Utah is very good defensively. They only give up about 9-10 points a game. So it's the wheels there. Both teams have good quarterbacks. Arizona State is led by Sam Levitt. To me, I really like him. I think he's a gutsy guy. He won that, Arizona State won that conference last year, and I think a lot of it was by him. And Utah is led by Devin Dampier, who's more of a dual threat guy, but he leads their offense well. Arizona State, Brown, their running back, is a good running back. He has 506 yards. And Tyson, their leading wide receiver, has got 483. So really well-rounded offense against a good defense. And the game is at Utah. It's a Saturday game, and it's a late game Saturday. So this is going to be one of the games that we watch at the end of the night. So it's nice to have 2 good teams in that 5.5-point favorite for Utah. Oh, I really want to pick Arizona State in this game, and I think I will. I think, since that loss, Dillingham has been playing on a mission. They beat Baylor at the end. They won a couple of games at the end on field goals. So I think give me Arizona State in this game and a 27-24 game that they pull out in the end. D-Mac, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, two really good teams squaring off in a late night. Well, not late night for them, but late night for us Saturday. This game's played in Utah. I would lean Arizona State offense in this one, but there's one guy for Utah that I want to point out, and that's John Henry Daly, defensive end. 6.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles so far this year. I think he's going to have a chance to cause some havoc in this game. Everything in my body's telling me to go Arizona State. Don't know if Utah covers. I would take Arizona State to cover this one, but I think the Utes get a field goal win. I'm gonna go 38-35 in this one for the Utes. What do you think, Sweets?
I'm going to take Utah 31-24. I think Arizona playing in the elevation at night. Utah will get raucous. It's a good crowd. It's a good crowd at Rice-Eccles Stadium. They're going to be ready. They want revenge for the game last year in a game that they thought they could go down to Tempe and win. So I think Utah's going to come out firing. I think they're going to win the game. I'm going to take them 31-24. I think they cover, and look for Dampier to have a great game for them. That'll lead us into BYU at Arizona. I'll lead off there. BYU is 5-0 after coming in off a 38-24 win over West Virginia in their most recent game. They're led by freshman quarterback Bear Bachmeier, who's averaging around 210 yards a game throwing the ball. And they have a great rushing attack. They're averaging over 250 yards a game on the ground. So they're doing their thing on offense. BYU's defense is their biggest strength, though. They're holding opponents to 9.25 points a game, which is fantastic, and they are shutting down the run. Arizona also has a great defense, though. They beat Oklahoma State 41-28, and put back on over a little more than they'd like to. Noah Fafita has thrown for over 1,300 yards on 13 TDs this season, and Javen Whiteley is their leading receiver with 316 yards. In this game, they're both both in the hunt. BYU's 5-0, 2-0 in the conference. Arizona's 1-1 in conference and really needs this win to stay in the conference. But give me the Cougars here. I'll take the Cougars 38-24. I think they're just too much defensively for Arizona. I think Fafita will give them a little trouble, and they'll score a few points, but I think BYU's too much for them. What are your thoughts on that game, D-Mac?
Yeah, I love Bear Bachmeier at BYU. You know, what a story. Their starting quarterback transfers late. This kid's thrust into the starting role, and he has played really well. Like you said, 7 touchdowns to 1 interception, you know, almost 1,100 yards passing. This game opened up as a 2.5-point favorite for the Cougars, down to 1.5 in their favor still. But, you know, I'm rolling with the Cougars over the Wildcats this week. I think I'm going to call a 38-20 or 35-24 game. BYU takes care of business, continues to roll a little bit in that Big 12. Who do you have in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, I really like BYU. You know, you guys mentioned the quarterbacks and the play there and their defense. Their coach has done a really good job with that team. You look consistent. He's been a consistent winner the last 5-6 years. So give me BYU in that game, 34-17. I think BYU rolls in that game. I like BYU and Tech the most in that Big 12 conference. Sounds like you got something ready to
That'll
tell
take us into the SEC.
Go ahead there, Sweets.
No, I was going to say that will take us into the SEC slate, leading off with Alabama at Missouri. You want to take that one, Kevin?
Yeah, so I really like this game this week. Alabama's a 5.5-point favorite. Where I like this game in the matchups is Alabama has been prone to give up yards in the running game. Georgia ran for over 200 against them. Florida State ran for over 300 against them, and Missouri has one of the best running games in the conference. Ahmad Hardy, he's had a great year, very physical runner, and then Bo Perbula also runs the ball. Their running back room is deep at Missouri, so I think they're going to give Bama trouble. Quarterback matchup, I think, is also a good matchup. You know, we talked about Simpson earlier being the player of the week. He's completing about 65% of his passes, 13 TDs on the year, 1 interception. But Perbula's been good also. He's over 70% on completions, 9 TDs, 3 interceptions, and he's going to mix in the run. The question to me is, can Missouri match up with Alabama's wide receivers and the speed of that? That's kind of what hurt Vanderbilt last Saturday. Now Vanderbilt had a hard time stopping the run too, but when Bama needed to get a big play in the passing game, they leaned on that speed at the wide receiver room. So that to me is going to be the interesting part. Can Missouri play and contain that? You're not going to stop it. Can they contain that as they? I firmly believe Missouri will run the ball. Kirby Moore, I think, is one of the best offensive coordinators in the game right now. And so I think Missouri will run the ball. I think they'll score points. It's a noon game, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central. I think that also plays a role in it. sometimes visiting teams have a tough time, on the road in an early game. And I think the home team will come out rolling. I know 2 years ago when LSU in 23 played Missouri, Missouri came out ready, went down the field, scored the first possession, went for two, made a statement that they were there to play the game to win it. And I think that Drink will do the same thing in this game. He will have them ready, and they will come out early rolling. At the end of the day, I think Alabama wins this game. I'm going to say 31-27. But it's not. This game will not surprise me. Alabama's coming off a Georgia game, which was a huge game, and then a Vanderbilt game, which meant a lot to them because Vandy beat them last year. So this is like 3 weeks in a row. You've got to get up for a good team. So to me, this is a little bit of a trap game. I'm going to pick Alabama, but I will not be a bit surprised if we tune in Saturday afternoon and Missouri wins this game. What's your thoughts, Sweets?
I'm with you, Kevin. I like Bama 38-31 in this game. I think that they're starting to round into form. They're looking better on both sides of the ball, getting things going. Starting to get Williams more involved in the passing game. Ty Simpson's looking a lot more comfortable under center for the Gumps. I also think that Missouri has been fantastic in every way. Ahmad Hardy is in the Heisman contention as well as Bo Pribula, and both of those guys are doing a fantastic job for Mizzou. I just think at the end of the day, Alabama has too many Jimmys and Joes for Missouri. I think it's a close game. It won't surprise me if there's lead changes in the fourth quarter. I think at the end of the day, talent outweighs the home field advantage, and I like them 38-31. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, so I started this season saying Ahmad Hardy was maybe a little overrated. Wouldn't pan out in SEC as a running back one. I've got to eat those words. He's phenomenal. Averaging over 7 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns so far. 11 a.m. game. I think things are going to be rocking in Como this week. The line opened at 5.5. Bama is a 5.5 point favorite. It's down to 2.5 now. After those two big games they've played the last 2 weeks, I expect an 11 a.m. hangover game this week. And I think if, Missouri gets the ball, takes about 9-10 minutes off the clock, scores a touchdown, does it again, gets up 14-3, at halftime, it's going to be too much for Alabama to overcome. So I'm going to roll with Missouri in this one. I'm going to take them to win this game. I'm going to go 31-21, 10-point win for the Missouri Tigers at home. So that takes us into the Washington State Ole Miss game. What are your thoughts on this one, Sweets?
Ole Miss is a 33.5 point favorite against Wazoo. This is the first time the teams have met. ESPN gives them over a 98% chance of winning this game. Ole Miss, led by Trinidad Chambliss, is just they've looked fantastic so far. Chambliss has worked his name into the Heisman talk. They're scoring points. Their defenses looked good. Big win over LSU a few weeks ago. I don't see this as a game that Ole Miss has to worry about here. I think that they have no problems with Washington at home. I think that they call the shot on this one. I'm gonna call it 48-10 Ole Miss, and the Lane train stays on the tracks. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just going to go straight to the point. Lane's going to have his team ready to play coming off of a bye, and Lane is looking at this team as a playoff team with the schedule that they have left. They go on the road to Oklahoma and on the road to Georgia. Outside of that, they'll be favored in every game that they play. So an Ole Miss 10-2 team would make the playoffs if you give if they don't win one of those games. They're going to win this game 45-10. They're going to handle this game easy. Your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. 32.5 points is a lot of points. But with Trinidad at the helm, I don't think they have any issue winning this one. I'm gonna go 49-13 in this one. 36-point win for the Rebels of Ole Miss. So that brings us to another fun game. It takes us to Oklahoma and Texas. Tell us about that one, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is you go back 60 years. This is one of your best rivalries in college football, and and again this year it's much the same. I know Texas has 2 losses. You have 2 outstanding defenses. Statistically, Texas is leading the SEC in defense. Oklahoma has a great front seven. They sacked Auburn's quarterback 10 times a few weeks ago. Florida sacked Manning 6 times this past weekend. So that to me is the matchup. Look, both defenses are going to ugly this game up. Mateer's saying, he wants to try to play this weekend. And so we'll see. I honestly don't think he will. I think you're going to see Hawkins. I think Oklahoma's going to talk Mateer. But I think Oklahoma's looking at the big picture of their total season. Would they love him to play this weekend? Absolutely. But I don't think they're going to risk their season on this one game, even though it's a big one. So again, to me, whose offense gets rolling the best in this game? I think it'll be an ugly defensive game that maybe one team gets in the 20s. I don't think both teams will. I'll also say this about the game. Even though Manning has struggled this year, and he struggled some against Florida in the Swamp, ended up with 2 interceptions. I give him credit for competing and hanging in there, and he got going a little bit in the second half, and I think he ended up with 260 yards passing and about 60, 70 yards rushing. So to me, I think he showed progress in that game against Florida. Not at the beginning when Florida got up on him, early, but from about the second half on, Manning to me showed some life. I think Texas look, their backs are against the wall. They have to win this game. When I look at Oklahoma again, I think they're great on defense, but I'm still not sold against their offense scoring a lot of points against a good defense. Offensively against Auburn, they played okay in the first half, much better in the second half, but again, didn't score a lot of points in that game. So I think Texas is going to win this game in an ugly game just because they need it more. They have to win this game. So I'm going to go, 20-13 Texas. Their defense will fight and hold Oklahoma without Mateer in this game. So I give the advantage to Texas there. I think their defense will force a couple of turnovers out of Hawkins, and that'll be enough to win the game. But 2 good teams, 2 excellent defenses. Sweets, what's your thoughts on Oklahoma, Texas?
Not so fast, my friend.
All right.
Listen, I like Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma this weekend. I'll tell you why. I just think that Texas has everything to play for right now, but I think this is the game that causes Texas fans to lose their minds, start calling for Arch to be replaced, as well as perhaps Sark too. With the expectations Texas had rolling into the season, they've just failed miserably to live up to them so far. I think that Hawkins is serviceable enough with that defense. They're going to score enough points to beat Texas because I don't see Texas scoring more than 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma. Give me Oklahoma 23-13 over Texas, and I think that Oklahoma just keeps rolling. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, what a game, Red River rivalry this week. I to talk about Arch a little bit. I think he's still going to be fine. I don't think this is his year though. That front 7 against Oklahoma is so good. They're going to give him some fits this week, and he hasn't had to deal with pressure like this. And I'll even include the Florida defense he faced last week. They're good, but they're not Oklahoma good this year. This game is currently a 1.5-point favorite. Texas is in this one. So, I think Oklahoma's going to lean on the run game a lot with Blaylock. Jade Knott got some carries last week. He might be turning a little bit of an edge. He averaged about 5 yards a carry against Kent State, so not a large sample size by any means. Yeah, I think another low scoring game. The over-under's 42.5. I think this could be like a 17-7 game, 17-10. Oklahoma wins. So I love Oklahoma here, and I love the under in this one. So that takes us over to Knoxville, Arkansas, facing off against Tennessee. Tell us what you've got in that one, Sweets.
Love to listen. Tennessee is played some good ball this year. They should be 5-0. They gifted Georgia a game, but they sit at 4-1. I think that the Fighting Bobby Petrinos just don't have enough Jimmys and Joes to compete with Tennessee this weekend. They're going to show some fight. They're averaging over 500 yards a game offensively, led by Taylor Green, who's been fantastic this year. He's done a great job. He's got just under 1,400 yards passing, leads the team in rushing with 441 yards. He's doing it all for them. Tennessee's just too much for them, though, and having the game in Knoxville, it's a 12.5 point spread. I don't think it's close. I think Tennessee wins this game 45-14 in a runaway, and people start throwing Tennessee back into the conversation for for making a run in the playoffs. What do you think about this game, DMAC?
Yeah, so two high powered offenses. Bobby Petrino is he gonna get the ship right at Arkansas this year, and earn the job for the future? I love this Arkansas offense. Taylor Green's a stud. He's accounted for nearly 1,900 yards of total offense this year. Petrino called out some of the younger wide receivers this week and said, "You guys have got to step up. We need more from you." Right now, Omega Blake is their guy. 30 catches, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. He should not he should not have 34% of the receptions this year, but he does. So they need some other guys to step up. Yeah, I think Tennessee wins this game. It is an 11.5 point line right now. I don't think it's going to be, a 30-point win for them. That secondary from Tennessee still a little beat up right now. They're still missing a few guys in the back end of the defense. So I think Arkansas is going to have some success slinging the rock this week. I think a few of those freshmen do step up. I've got this game as like a 45-31 game. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one, but I've got Tennessee ultimately winning this one. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, Tennessee lost to Arkansas last year, and the last few times they've played, Arkansas has beat them. I only say that because coming off of a bye week, I think Tennessee is going to be prepared very well. Also, we've seen over the years that the interim coach in his first game, that team usually sees a big lift, and so I think you'll see that also out of Arkansas. Tennessee, with both their cornerbacks still dinged up, I think Arkansas will have some success throwing the ball. I like Tennessee to win this game, and I do think it'll be high scoring on both sides. I really like your score. I mean, I think 45-30, 44-28, something like that, 44-31. I think Tennessee wins, but I think both these teams play pretty well. I'm really curious to see how Arkansas's defense plays this weekend. Now, I think Arkansas defensive line is solid. Their linebackers have talent. I think their secondary is an opportunity for them. So I'm not sure how much better they can play. But Petrino fired that whole defensive staff essentially when he took over. So I'm going to be curious to see. And he's been deep in their mix the last 2 weeks and brought in new coaches. He did keep one of the defensive line assistants. That's a experienced defensive line coach. Wilson made him the defensive coordinator. So I'm curious to see if he gets more fight out of that defense than what they've shown. And I think they'll play more solid and blitz a little bit less. They've gambled a lot and really been torched. So, but I do think Tennessee wins this game. I think both teams will play with a lot of motion and a lot of passion. It's a very meaningful game for both teams in different ways. Petrino wants a job. Tennessee wants in the playoffs.
Yeah, so that takes us into the Florida traveling to Texas A&M game. So, DJ Lagway had a good game last week, named SEC Player of the Week. There's a wide receiver at Texas A&M who got the snub this week. So, DJ Lagway was
You're not
good
gonna
at
let that one
home.
go, are you?
I am not. I'm not happy about that at all.
Somebody
He
scoring.
Yeah, I mean, what DJ Lagway throws for 298 yards and he's player of the week? If he doesn't throw 5 interceptions at LSU a few weeks prior, there's no way a 298-yard quarterback gets player of the week. But I'll move on to the game ahead for a minute. I do want to talk DJ Lagway though. Great, good performance at home. But what did he do a few weeks ago when he had to go on the road in the SEC? Threw 5 interceptions against that LSU defense. Mike Elko is going to have his defense ready to play this week. Marcel Reed playing really good football right now, nearly 1,300 yards passing for the Aggies, 11 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. While this Florida defense is good, they're not going to be any match for Texas A&M this week. I know we'll talk hot seat in a minute. Billy Napier gets a win last week, so maybe it's not scorching. After Saturday, it's going to be scorching again. This is a 7.5 point line. I don't think the Gators stand a chance on the road in front of 95,000 plus fans at Kyle Field. So I'm going to take the Aggies big in this one, and I'm going to call Casey Concepcion Player of the Week upcoming. I'm going to predict that. I think he goes for 2 touchdowns again, catches a few more passes, gets over the 100-yard mark, and the Texas A&M Aggies are going to win this one. I'm going to go 38-17. A huge home win for them. They're going to do something the other Texas team couldn't, and they're going to beat the Florida Gators. What do you think of this one, Sweets?
I like Texas A&M too. I'll call it 31-13. I just think that they're too much for Florida, and I just don't think Florida can do enough offensively to keep the game competitive. Marcel Reed's passed for 1,256 yards on the year, rushed for 149. But Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss are both. Owens is at 276, averaging 7.1 yards a carry, and Moss is at 343, averaging 5.3 yards a carry. So Texas A&M has a very balanced offense. They're consistent. They got a solid offensive line, and at Kyle Field, they're just too much. Like you had stated before, DMAC Lagway in his first SEC road test had 5 picks. While I don't see him throwing 5 picks against Texas A&M, I see the same result, and that's a 31-13 win for the Aggies. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, so I like this game. If you want to watch a defensive battle that, again, both teams may not get in the 20s. Florida had 6 sacks last week against Texas. Texas A&M had, I think, 5 sacks it was against Mississippi State. And their Cassius Howell had 3 himself. And so both front sevens have been really good. Look, Florida, for all their faults, their defenses came to play every week. Their defense has more than withstood their own to keep them in games. So I think you're going to see that again. I think an interesting piece of this, though, too, Texas A&M probably has the best offensive line in the SEC, and their running game really stood up last week against Mississippi State as they rushed for over 200 yards in that game. So I think that's going to be a telltale test. I also, wonder in this game, Lagway has been bad until he played Texas. Now, the one thing, though, that was different was Dallas Wilson finally played in this game, the freshman wide receiver who has a lot of high expectations. So I think you'll continue to see A&M throw the ball well. And again, if I'm going to look at matchups, A&M's secondary to me is their weak part of their defense. So with Lagway, Vernon Brown, Wilson, the receivers that that Florida can put on the field. I think you're going to see Florida has some success moving the ball. I don't think either one of these teams goes up and down the field, though. Let me clarify that. I just think you're going to see some success on offense by both teams. I'm going to go with A&M because they're the home team. Look, this is a really also a schedule anomaly to me. It is very rare that you see an SEC team play 3 games in a row at home, and that is exactly what you have with Texas A&M in this matchup. They played Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home, and then now Florida at home. That is a rarity. Now, on the flip side of that, as soon as they get through with Florida this week, they're going to go play 3 on the road. Arkansas, LSU, and I forget the other team. But I think that scheduling anomaly really plays into their favor, but getting the 3rd game at home. Give me Texas A&M 20-17 in a hard-fought game, and then yes, I think Napier's seat gets hot again. But this will be a good game. The defenses will make this one competitive with a few big explosive plays. I think out of the passing game on both sides. That leads us to Georgia and Auburn. Sweet, you want to take that one? That's one of the college football's oldest rivalries.
Yeah. What a great rivalry weekend with the Red River Shootout and the Deep South's oldest rivalry. This is the 130th edition of that. Number 10, Georgia travels to the Plains to face Auburn. I'm looking forward to a great game. Listen, we've talked about this before. Auburn is a fantastic place to watch a football game, and if they're in the game, that crowd's going to be jumping. But I don't think they're going to be in the game because I think Georgia is just too talented for them. Georgia's got that one loss. They know that their backs are against the wall. They can't lose another one. And I think that Georgia goes down there and gets the job done. Gunnar Stockton, he's got a little over 1,000 yards passing on the year. He's also got a couple hundred yards rushing. Chauncey Bones and Nate Frazier also around 300 yards apiece on the ground as well. And Colby Young is the top receiver with 247 yards on 18 catches. Defensively, Georgia's got some players back there. I'll tell you what, I think that they're going to give Jackson Arnold nightmares. The one thing that Auburn can do, if they can get Coleman loose, that could cause Georgia some problems, in my opinion. At the end of the day, though, I think Georgia is just too much for Auburn. I'm trying to find the line here.
3.5 Georgia.
No line on this one, DMAC.
3.5
Georgia. That seems really low. So I still think Georgia covers. I'm going to take Georgia 31-21. I just think they're too much at the end of the day. It'll be a good game going into the middle of the third, middle of the third quarter or so, and then Georgia's talent pulls away. So that's where I'm at. Where are you at on this game, DMAC?
I'm going to defer to Kevin first.
So I think this is again, there's no better atmosphere week in, week out than Auburn. And this is a home game, and it's a big game for them. They're coming off a bye week. Great wide receivers on Auburn's side with Coleman and Singleton. Good running game with Cobb, and Arnold's been a good runner. The question is, can Jackson Arnold let go of the football? He's been sacked several times, and he's, everybody's talked about it. His coaches talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. He holds the ball too long. Can he pull the trigger this week? There's no question Georgia loves to blitz. They're going to get after the quarterback. Georgia's secondary, though, has shown some vulnerability. They gave up yards to Tennessee. They gave up yards to Bama in the passing game. And at times, Kentucky moved the ball through the air, and Kentucky is certainly not a team that can throw the ball well. So that, to me, is the question. Can Jackson Arnold, they coached him hard these last 2 weeks to get rid of the ball. I would even venture to say they pushed him to – I'd rather have an interception than you hold it. Not that they want him to throw an interception, but they pushed him to get rid of the football this week. So I think that's the interesting part. Can he get rid of the football? Can Auburn go into this game with a good offensive game plan against Georgia? Auburn's defense is competitive. Held A&M to 16 points. Oklahoma got into the 20s only in the last few minutes of that game. So Auburn's defense is good. You know, Crawford's had 4 sacks on the year. Xavier Atkins, a linebacker for him that played at LSU last year, has been outstanding. And he didn't start at the beginning of the year, but he's leading their team in tackles. So I think Auburn will contain Georgia's offense. I look at this game as a shootout that one team's going to win 24-21. Both teams have good kickers. McPherson doesn't have the distance that the kicker from Georgia has, Woodlawn, and so give me Georgia 24-21. I do think Auburn covers in this game though, and again, this would not be surprising to me if Auburn pulled this one out. I said at the beginning of the year, I think they beat one of the two between Alabama and Georgia, so we'll see how they do this one. Your thoughts now, D-Mac?
Yeah, so I'm heading to Birmingham this weekend. One of my best friends gets married. Huge Auburn fan. So I'm glad that he's having his wedding day on Saturday. So it's a happy day for him. Because if he was just watching football like any other Saturday, it would not be a happy day for him. So, Jackson Arnold he's averaging 168 yards passing a game. That's not going to get the job done against Georgia. They're going to have to pass better, and I frankly don't think Jackson Arnold's the guy to do it. He's a guy I was a little higher on going into the season than I am right now. I think Gunnar Stockton's gonna manage the game well. I'm with you though. This is going to be a defensive battle. Auburn's defense, their linebackers are so good with Atkins. Riddick, and I know I'm leaving somebody really good
Wood,
off.
Woodyard.
Yeah, yeah. I'm leaving my fantasy leading linebacker off. What am I doing here? But they have not been able to get Cam Coleman rolling this year, and I think that's a big issue for them. So I'm gonna take Georgia. And you know what? This one's for Bella if she's watching. All three of us taking Georgia this week. I'm gonna go 27-21 in a one-score game, and there is no way Hugh Freeze wins a one-score game in the SEC. He's 2-11 in his last 13 one-score SEC games. So rolling with Georgia in this one. So this brings us to the last game. Oh,
So before we leave that Georgia Auburn game, because again we all reference Jackson Arnold as the question. So do we see Deuce Knight in this game? I think the potential to see him in that second half is there.
I'm going. I mean,
yeah,
What you think, D-Mac?
I'm leaning no Deuce Knight. I think they're gonna stick with Jackson Arnold this week because they're gonna be in the game to some degree. Not necessarily because of Jackson Arnold's play, but that defense is gonna keep them in. I don't think they make a move just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised when they're sitting at 3-3 if they decide to make a move after that.
I think coming off a bye, they've done some work to get him ready. So I think if Arnold's a little bit off in this game, I do think we see Knight. If Arnold goes through another period where he struggles. But anyhow, the things we watch football for. So that leads us to the last game that we're going to talk about. Another big game, Saturday night in Death Valley. D-Mac, what you have on South Carolina LSU?
Yeah, a couple big question marks. LSU's offense looked horrendous their last time out. There's only so many things you can do five games into the season to change that as well. No running game, subpar quarterback play at best right now, bad offensive line play. The Gamecocks have Dylan Stewart on the defensive side who loves to get after the pass rusher. So, we're gonna see how well LSU was able to adjust on their bye week and get ready for this game. They looked good in Clemson when they had an entire off season to prepare. Didn't look so good with 1 week versus Ole Miss to prepare. So having 2 weeks here for South Carolina, I like the Tigers in this one. I think the defense is going to play a big part in this one. It is a 9.5 point game. To me, that may be a lot of points right now. I think you're going to give up 17. Possibly a special teams touchdown mixed in there with Vakari Swain returning punt kicks for them. So, going to be an interesting game. Night game at Death Valley, though, huge advantage. I think if this game's not played at night, the line may not be 9.5 either. So I think LSU is going to have to get some sort of run game going. I don't know how they're going to have to get creative with it too. Caden Durham's back though. We saw what he did at South Carolina last year. So could this be his breakout game of the season this year to right the ship a little bit on offense? I do think you may see Van Buren in this game though for the Tigers. I think that's a real possibility. So I do like Lenore Sellers, though. Hasn't played up to his potential either. So these are two teams that talent level, LSU's definitely more talented, but two teams that are kind of in a similar boat. You're talking about the top two preseason quarterbacks in the SEC who neither have looked anywhere near that so far this season. So I'm going to take the Tigers in a 24-17 win, not quite covering in this one, but getting the win at home. What do you think, Sweets?
I'll take LSU 21-13 with the win and not the cover. And this is going to be a defensive special. That LSU, we've heard the reports coming out of Baton Rouge for the past week and a half saying a lot of changes are coming on the offensive side of the ball, and this, that, and the other. You got to show me before I can believe in you, because against teams not named Southeast Louisiana, we're averaging about 18 points a game. That's just not enough to get it done, especially with the talent we have on the offensive side of the ball. Nussmeier has been meh. He's been very, very average. He's thrown off his back foot, thrown into triple coverage. I don't know if he's injured, what the extent of the injury is, or whatever. I just know he's not getting the job done at present. And this is a game where I can definitely see Van Buren coming in, middle of the second quarter, or maybe after the half, if LSU's got nothing going, because it's time that that we start scoring some points. So that's my thoughts on the game. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, so first let me say I love the two defensive coordinators in this game. Two of my favorite defensive coordinators in college football. I love Blake Baker and the way he plays, aggressive and getting after the quarterback, and I really love Clayton White at South Carolina. So I'll set that part to begin the game. So I think you see Kern probably play a lot at guard this weekend with Mabinga most likely out for this game. And I think you see a simplified rotation in the wide receiver room for LSU. I think you'll see more Green at tight end and Anderson, Xavion Thomas, Brown, Nick Anderson more in that wide receiver room, and not as much coming in and out with the rotation in that. So, and I think if we see that, we'll see more consistency around the offense. I definitely could see Van Buren playing in this game. To me, LSU is exactly where Alabama was after week one. People were all over Alabama. They were all over Simpson. And he didn't play that bad, week one. Their defense just couldn't stop the run. But that's where Nuss is. So my thoughts around this game is Garrett going to come out very focused, like he played in the second half against Clemson, especially in that third quarter? Is he going to come out focused, and is he going to come out determined to play well, prepared? Again, they were prepared in that Clemson game, and against Ole Miss, the offense did not look prepared. So I think that's the question in this game. I'm not going to tell you that I expect LSU to come back in this game and score in the 30s. I do think we see better execution and better offense in this game. Look, LSU's offensive line has been a struggle in the running game, but one thing they have done is they protected the quarterback well all year, just like last year. We're in the top 20 as far as giving up pressure on the quarterback. So I think we've given us enough time, and I think there'll be some design throws to get the ball out early. I think LSU is going to win this game 27-13. I think LSU's defense is also very determined after that Ole Miss game. I think their defense, if they wouldn't have had to stay on the field so long. Here's the one thing I know I've talked a lot, and we've talked a lot about this game. Here's the one thing I want to see LSU do better: get first downs every time you get the ball. Get the 3 and outs have got to go. We've got to be better offensively at moving the ball consistently. That has really hurt our defense this season and kept them on the field. We have to, and it hurts your field position. And football's a game, field position means a lot. So that's the one thing I want to see out of LSU this weekend is I want to see consistently get first downs, play for the long drives. Nuss has got to get it out of his head that he's going to push the ball downfield the whole game. If it's there, take your shot. But take what the defense gives you. Let's be a little more consistent running the ball. Like I said, I think Kern at guard. If you have a left side of Adams, Kern, and Moore, I think that really solidifies that side, and you may be able to run the ball on that side. So I think we'll see some improvement. I think we'll see better execution, better prepared. LSU 27-13, and then we can talk about. Well, look, we're going to talk about it one way or another Sunday. It's either going to be we're very frustrated and this team just ain't it, or we're going to be like there's some positive momentum. I think so. We'll see how it turns out.
Something with everybody who watches LSU second, regardless of the. I mean, it just keeps happening. I don't know if Sloan will be or out. I want to see LSU is the most predictable team in America right now on offense, and I think if we can mix it up a little bit, that'll certainly help the offense get on track.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a little update real quick of our Week 6 predictions. So on the Thursday night podcast, on the
We
Thursday,
didn't do well.
yeah, we each took one favorite and one underdog. So Kevin, you went 0-2, taking
0-2
Mississippi
against that spread.
and
Lost the
Baylor. Sweets, you were 1-1. Georgia covered. Florida State lost by more than 4.5. I was 1-1 as well. I took Clemson to cover, which they did. Vandy did not cover the 10.5 points. I'm still mad about a touchdown by Bama with 17 seconds to go in a game. But so on Thursday, we'll each make another pick for a favorite and an underdog. But before we wrap up tonight, let's talk a little bit of coach hot seats. You want to get us started with this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to take Billy Napier and set him back on the hot seat. We had his seat burned up, and he was we're waiting for the announcement. So I'm going to bring him off of the announcement, put him back on the hot seat. We'll see where he ends up Sunday morning. But then my coach that the seat is burned through, and again, we're waiting for the announcement, is Trent Dilfer from UAB. He's just not done very well at all there. Continues to lose game. They lost again to Army. So I think we're just waiting for the announcement on Mr. Dilfer. And then Napier, he's still hot. See where the trend goes. Sweets, what you got for the hot seat?
Who has been on? They've you know, some guys are coordinators and some guys are candidate of the week.
Yeah, so I've got two guys I'm gonna add to the list. One who seat's definitely warming up on, and that's gonna be Hugh Freeze. He's gonna likely start the season 3-3, and it does not get much easier for him the rest of the season. The next coach I'm gonna add Bill O'Brien at Boston College to the hot seat. Pitt benches their starting quarterback, Eli Holston, and they put in the number 2 guy, and they beat Boston College to the tune of 48-7. Boston College's only win this season is over Fordham. They lost a close one to Michigan State. Stanford beat them by 10 points, and then they lost at home to Cal. Things were looking up for the Boston College team last year. They finished, I think, 7-6. Got 2 wins to end the season. It is going the wrong direction right now. I don't think Bill O'Brien makes it to next season. So those are the 2 coaches I have to add. Kevin, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I just, a couple of final thoughts. We talked about a lot of games. A couple more points I just want to say about the games. Look, I love your pick with Missouri because deep down I kind of want to take them just because of the matchup with their ability to run the ball against Bama's run defense. The thing that made me stick with Bama though is they only have 1 turnover on the season total, fumbles, pass interceptions. And again, if you look at that turnover, it was a 4th down play deep in Bandy's territory, and Simpson threw an interception. So, he actually gave his team 20 yards by throwing the interception. So I just think Bama's coached really well right now, and so I give them that. But I love your pick. Again, I think we've got a lot to see this weekend. We decided last weekend there was a lot of things that were established, but I think when you look at the games, Arizona State, Utah, Michigan, USC, Auburn, Georgia, Oregon, and Indiana, LSU, South Carolina, Bama, Missouri. There's still a lot to learn this weekend, and I did mention Texas, Oklahoma, which again, that game's going to tell us a lot right there too. If Texas loses, their season's pretty well done at this point. So it's going to be another really good weekend from start to finish, from noon on. It's going to be a great Saturday for us to learn some more and watch. So, Sweets, what's your closing thoughts this weekend?
To my Marietta Blue Devils. Class 6A Georgia region will be in the driver. They started off 0-4, but they've won to the Grinnell Pioneers. Look at
So yeah, for me to wrap up, I'm going to go back to my soapbox for a second. Casey Conception, 6 touchdowns this year. He's going to have a huge game this week against the Florida Gators. So really excited to see that game. I know we've got some good high school football coming up on Friday that we'll talk about Thursday night. So good week of games for us. Two big rivalry games in Oklahoma, Texas, and then you've got Georgia, Auburn. So going to be a great weekend of football. Make sure if you haven't already liked and subscribed to us, you do that now. And we'll see you guys on Thursday when we drop our Thursday pod talking high school football, making our last minute picks and diving in a little deeper. I think we're even going to talk some offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators that are ready to make that jump to being a head coach. And we'll even re-rank our SEC quarterbacks this Thursday. So that's it.
Third time you might get it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, at some point we're gonna get it right. It might be after the season, but we're gonna
Yeah.
get this thing right at some point.
We'll get there eventually. Hey, D-Mac, I was going to ask you, maybe we could go with like a Southern Sports Gumbo Player of the Week, where we find a promotional company, maybe you know of one, who makes a little shirt that we send out to our Player of the Week as a little gift and a little shout out to them. So, and you could do that, you know, behind the back and send one to your boy Concepcion because he was your Player of the Week.
Yeah, I think I may know a guy who can take care of that for us. So that's it for today's show. Thanks for hopping on with us, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.